everybody? All right, I'm here in Flagstaff, Arizona. I want to go through some of the questions. This one I get a lot, so I want to go a little bit more in depth with this question, but it is generally like, what scales do I play over what chords, in what key, that kind of an idea. So instead of going modal and getting a little bit too in depth with that, because generally when that question happens, I kind of have an understanding of where the person's kind of musical knowledge is. So I want to start with just using the pentatonic and how to use it, both the major and the minor pentatonic. So your pentatonic scale, we're only going to be using that one position in the pentatonic. So, you know, if I'm doing here A minor, 5 8 5 7 5 7 5 7 5 8 5 8. I do hope at least that much you guys know. And if you don't, there are plenty of diagrams, but that's a scale if you wanted to rewind it and learn it. But there are plenty of diagrams and ways that you can like really learn the pentatonic, and I could do a separate video on that. But the other thing too is it's the same exact scale for a major pentatonic. This is the difference that I want you guys to pay attention to. If we had a chord progression that had an A minor as the starting, you know, whatever the chord progression was, right? A minor was the first chord. You would do an A minor pentatonic. How you would find that is of any one of these notes on the top string, wherever that pentatonic scale starts, that's my A. You can also just see it as that's my A minor bar chord. That's where my minor scale will fit over, okay? So doing the same thing now, if I were to play, you know, something that's that starts on F sharp minor, you know, okay, fine. Now I'm using my F sharp minor pentatonic, okay? And that's how you move it all up and down the neck, all right? And if you guys need to see the notes on that top string, on that E string, that would be great, because you might have, you know, a progression that you can't see the person playing. You know, it's a little bit easier when you can kind of see their starting chord. So that is how you would do it, okay? If I were to pick D minor, right? That was my starting chord for this. I would find a D, 10th fret, and I would play my minor pentatonic position there, okay? Now, if I do the same thing for major pentatonic, it is the same exact scale. If I do this, 5 8 5 7 5 7 5 7 5 8 5 8. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take that 5 out of there, that first 5, and I'm just going to start on this 8. All right? Now that 5 can be there. It's just lower than the root note. This is now my root note, and this is the major pentatonic, okay? So the reason that's the same scale is in A minor pentatonic, if I have my A minor progression, I would use my A minor pentatonic to play over that. It's the same exact notes as if I were to have a C major as my starting point. Okay? And the scales are kind of played and laid out a little bit differently, but all of the notes are the same. Okay? So now, in this instance, when you're playing that pentatonic scale, wherever that pinky is now your root note. All right? So, if you have, let's just say, B flat, major, is your first chord of your progression. Cool. Let me find a B flat. All right? Now, that's where your pinky wants to go, not your first finger. That would make it minor. That would make it a B flat minor. You want to go where your pinky starts. All right, that is now your B flat major. Okay, if I pick another one, let's do D major. Okay, in that instance, we'd find our D, 10th fret, and that's where you want your pinky for the D major pentatonic. All right. The reason that works, the reason that whatever the first chord of that progression is, you could play that type, whether it's major or minor, pentatonic scale, is because it takes away the notes, the pentatonic, whether it's major or minor, take away the notes that make it definitive for one of the chords or one of the modes. Okay, so what I really mean by that is that the minor pentatonic will work over any minor chord. Whether, and some of you guys might know the theory behind this, but whether it is the 2 chord, the 3, chord or the sixth chord. Okay, all of those in a diatonic layout are all minor. Okay, they all have modes to each one of them that have different notes, but the pentatonic fits over all of those. So all of those notes in the pentatonic are in each one of those modes. That's why that scale is so great. That's why it doesn't matter what the progression winds up being so long as it's diatonic. It doesn't really matter if the progression is starting on a 2 chord, a 3 chord, or a 6 chord. That minor pentatonic will work because the notes that aren't in the pentatonic will not define that chord. That may have been a little bit more forward, theoretically, like a little bit more forward thinking than where you guys are, but that's the theory behind it. And that is the same with the major pentatonic. All right, the major pentatonic takes the notes out that would define those chords as either a 1, a 4, or 5 chord. All right, so that's also really important. Whenever you have a progression that starts with a major chord, you can, as long as it's diatonic, but they most likely will be, you can use the major pentatonic over each one of those, okay? So once you start getting that down, the major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic become the skeleton forms for your modes, okay? So you may not follow me on this, but to show you, if I do have A minor to D minor, right? And I'm just gonna, okay, that's gonna work. Now that scale has all of the notes that I need, but if I start learning modes, I can add the other notes in there using the skeleton of the pentatonic, add just those other notes to make it a natural minor scale, okay? Or if I were gonna do a Dorian scale, okay, the Dorian mode, if I had A minor to D major, right, I'm still using the pentatonic as my skeleton and then adding those notes on top of it, which are, if in case anybody does want to know, it's the 2nd scale degree and the 6th scale degree, because those change for each one of the modes. Okay, now if I do the same thing with the major pentatonic, it's awesome. That's my skeleton, right? So let's say I have A major to D major, right? A major pentatonic will always work. It takes those notes out that make it definitive to the 1st mode, the 4th mode, or the 5th mode. I do want to show you guys one thing with this, is the skeleton of the minor, right? That always works, and that's usually the position you're playing in when you start getting into modes and some of those trickier scales. I want to show you this for the major pentatonic. So if we have A major, right, and you're kind of doing your major pentatonic, when you start getting into the modes, that position will change a little bit. So I want to show you, when you're riffing around, right, stick right there where your pinky is, right, that'll be your major, A major. I want to show you this, and you guys can either write it down or kind of go back just a little bit to learn it, but this is the skeleton, so to speak, of every major mode. Okay, so there's 2 notes missing. It's still pentatonic, which means it's 5 notes. There's 7 in the modes. Okay, so we took those notes out. So it goes like this: 5, 7, 4. Now I'm on the A string. 4, 5. Or I'm sorry, 4, 7. Do that again. 5, 7, 4, 7, 4, 7. Okay, 5, 7, 4, 7, 4, 7. Now the next 3 strings: 6, 5, 7, 5, 7. Okay, so you have, it's a little bit more difficult to riff around in. It's the same notes as this. Right, you can kind of hear it like the same notes. The reason I want to show you that is these notes in this position is the skeleton form of every one of those major modes. Okay, so if it's Lydian, that's my extra note, that's my extra note, okay? But the skeleton form, those notes are always there, right? If it's Mixolydian, Right, those are my extras. Right, but the skeleton form is there. So I just wanted to show you guys that, because when you start moving into modes, that's going to be the position for your major modes, right? But when you're just riffing in the pentatonic, you're kind of down here. If you were going to start, it'd be awesome to do major pentatonic and doing it up there as well, if you guys can do it. So that is how I would want you guys to start playing, whether it's minor pentatonic for a minor chord progression, a major pentatonic for a major chord progression, getting very, very used to those, and then adding the other notes. Now, I've gone over this before as well, is you don't need to learn the pentatonics up and down. You don't need to learn the modes yet if you don't have a full grasp on the pentatonic. The more notes you start adding, the more theory you start adding, the more you're going to dilute your playing. Understand the modes, play with them, use your ear, what sounds good, what doesn't sound good, and then we can take those skeleton forms and start moving into modes. So this will be like kind of like a lesson 1 for that. And you guys won't have to worry about the theory, the progression, you know, what modes match up with what chords, because you're just using major pentatonic, minor pentatonic. If any of that slipped, like a little bit over your heads, I feel like a lot of you guys, some of you guys probably already know this, but for some of you guys, just go listen to it again and watch the video, and then feel free to comment, and I'll reply to the comments. All right, cool. Thank you guys.